Hi everyone, we are back. It's been a bit, but we're back. We're gonna do a few things. In this video, we are gonna talk about working with local storage because we kind of started touching on that to get the language preferences stuff working, but we did it in like a hacky way where we kind of have this, sort of thing, and it's kind of silly and annoying. We're gonna figure this out. All right, so yeah, kind of as a reminder, we just kind of had this shared preferences up here, and then we would get it to load and get the instance and all that kind of stuff. But we want to make this a little bit better and do some nice things just to make stuff work nice. Because I think right now, do we have like a locale provider? Yeah, like we just kind of get string called language, and this is open for typos if we want to use it in multiple places. So yeah, we're going to make this better. We are going to make a feature for this. We'll call it storage. Does this fit inside core? It might fit inside core, but I feel like, yeah, maybe it does. You know what? We're going to just put it inside core. Partly because we're not going to need a whole bunch of files, partly because it's going to be something pretty core to our app. So let's make a storage provider .dart. Now I've done this a bunch of times, but not exactly the way I'm planning on doing it now. So there might be a little bit of fiddling and me reworking it, but let's figure it out. So actually, so we have a provider called storage provider. I'm going to do this code here. We might move it somewhere else, but let's just make a class that's going to be called storage client. Okay. And we're going to do this in kind of a a fairly proper way. We're going to be using shared preferences, but I kind of want to build this in a way where you could use a different package and wouldn't have to do it. So we're going to make actually an abstract class called storage client, and it's going to have various things within it. For instance, we will have an init function that will run. It'll be a future void. And then we're going to want sort of functions to get values and set values. So we'll start by we'll actually just work with one type of value right now, and then the idea is we're going to do this for storing integers, storing I don't know, booleans, and probably storing strings, and that's probably all we really are going to care about here. So let's just have something called get string, and it's going to take a string which we'll just call key. Now this is an abstract class, so I'm not actually writing the method. I'm just kind of writing and designing the shape of it, and then we're going to have a void function that is going to set string. And that is fine, I think, for now. Then the idea is we'll actually have something called class storage class implementation, and it's going to extend storage class. Or sorry, storage client is what we're trying to do here. And we get these little warnings, hey, you need these sorts of things, so we can just do this and create the missing overrides. Yay! We're off to the races here. So in our init function, which I'm going to put first, I'm not sure the order, is it just reversed? No, it's so random. I don't know why they put it in that order. So what this thing will actually have is going to have a final, or we'll have it as kind of like what we did in the main.dart. We're going to have a late final shared preferences. And we'll import that, of course. And inside here, which we'll make async, we're just going to, we call it pref, let's call it instance, and I'll do it with an underscore, just make it, we can never really work with it outside of this class as we want. And we can just go instance equals, essentially, what we did over here, which was awaiting the shared instances, shared preferences dot get instance. So we'll do that, and all is good. Okay, cool. So that's our init function. Now to get a string, this will be pretty straightforward. So we're getting a string key passed in, And what we want to do is just kind of call instance.getString, so, and then just the key. And just to see what this is, this should be a string that is null, or nullable. So that is proper and conforming to our stuff. And then set string, which I made a mistake here, we should have a key, of course, and a string of value. And we will just copy these here. And here we will just go instance.setString and take that key and take that value. See, when you name things right, the autocomplete just kind of does all the magic for you. Okay, the next thing I want to do is inside the storage client, and we can actually do it inside the abstract class. You could do it really anywhere, but I like to kind of have essentially some static constants for our different keys. So we're going to have something called language key, and it is just going to be the word language. So that when we're working with this, we're actually going to pass in these values here rather than actually typing this throughout our code, and that will just make it cleaner. It'll make it so that we don't have any typos, and if for some reason we want to change our key, we could do it. So there we have it. That's good enough for now for this. Now this is not really the provider, this is kind of just our client. So I think we're going to actually just rename this file. Rather than moving it to a file, we can just call it storage client.dart. Okay, there we are. Now what we do want to make is our storage provider. And this is going to use Serverpod, obviously, but it's really just using Serverpod for the singleton aspect of it, as opposed to actually, dealing with any of the state. We don't really care about state in this case. This is more like a utility sort of thing. So, for instance, if we open up our client, let's see, client provider, we have this right here. Now, something that's been on my to-do list to do is actually convert this to a generated generated version of it. And the reason is there's actually like warnings that we're going to see in our app that say like don't use a non-generated Serverpod provider that relies on a generated one. So let's convert this to this really quick. I need to remember how this will work, but basically it's going to return a provider of type client, and we'll just call it, in this case, client. And we need to mark this as Serverpod. And actually, the keep alive shouldn't matter for this. So let's make sure that Serverpod gets imported. Flutter Serverpod, we want the Serverpod annotation package to come in, which I always have trouble getting in. There we go, Serverpod annotation. So we'll get that going, and we don't need this here. So we're just gonna mark this as Serverpod and client. And this will be basically a function, and what it's going to return is this stuff here, like this. And we're actually gonna have a ref in here. So we can just do ref, and we'll actually call it client ref, because that's what it's gonna want us to call this thing. And yeah, let's save that. Let's get rid of this code for a minute and let us actually do our little generated code stuff. So this will be part of client provider.g.dart. Okay, I am going to run our generator, and we have a make function for that. I'm going to do make gen watch, just in case I made a mistake, which I probably did. And actually I realized I did make a mistake. What we're actually returning from here is not provider client, but just client itself. So let's just let this finish so it doesn't do any weird stuff, which sometimes happens, and then we'll go from there. Succeeded. Okay, so now let's do this. Just change this to client, save again. Oh, right, you know what? This is actually going to be called client ref, and we can just call this ref here. And there we go. Okay, so now we have this, and because we called it just client, and if we actually look at this code right here, it'll actually be called client provider. We've been over that a million times. And why is it saying, oh, I already have this imported. Okay, cool. So we'll just do this. Okay, so there's that change there. This is just to set us up for better stuff kind of going all over, but that's okay. We also there's a client provider and there's the session provider, session manager provider. So let's do the same kind of thing here. We're just going to do this and we'll call it session manager provider.g.dart. And instead, we are just going to create something that's going to return a session manager, and we'll just call it session manager. And it will be session manager ref. And here we'll just do what was on my clipboard, which is basically returning these things. Then we'll get rid of this code and we will do our @riverpod, which actually got imported this time. Okay, cool. So we'll save that and hopefully everything's good. Session manager, what is this? Riverpod packages that support change notifier values of change notifier. Okay, not sure what this means. But I guess what we can do is, let's get rid of that. Yeah, what is this error meaning? Is it because session manager is, it's of type change notifier? It's probably just kind of warning you that like we're not going to be getting like state updates from this, and that's not our intention anyway. So I'm just going to ignore this for the file. Now we've made these pretty drastic changes. Let's just rebuild our Flutter app and make sure we're still getting stuff back. Yeah, I mean, we are. None of this would work if we made a mistake. Let's just try logging in to test our session manager. Hopefully that's my login. Welcome back. Let's just refresh and make sure that we are still logged in. Go to profile. Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? Because our session manager, actually, we do need to keep alive. So let's try that again. There we go. Let's just fully test this, logging out. Go back here, we're logged out, refresh. This is just my, my testing here. All right, cool. Tyler 3. Log in, we're logged in. So with this, we don't have to do keep alive because there's no state or anything really to deal with our client. Our client just goes off, does stuff, returns data basically, right? So having it, it would probably make no difference if we kept it alive. It'd be something interesting to benchmark actually, like is there a difference? But we don't care about saying that, but the session manager itself, because it is like a change notifier, we do want to keep that alive because we don't want it to spin up like basically close it down and spin up a new one every time. So that's the difference between those two things there. Okay, so now that we have these generated ones, which is nice, I want to basically do this obviously with our storage provider. So we're just going to basically copy the same thing. We're going to call this storage provider. And let's open up our storage client. And actually maybe, yeah, storage provider is fine. So we'll just call this storage. And it will be returning storage ref. So we call this storage client implementation. Yeah, so what we want to do, we want to return a storage client as actually the what we're returning from it. But what we want to actually create, and this this is part of, in clean architecture and stuff, what we're returning is our implementation of it. Meaning we could have an implementation, we could call this like storage client shared preferences implementation, and then we could have a second one for Hive or whatever. And ultimately, it's all storage client. They all have the same shape. They all will work the same way. And this will allow us to toggle this. So what we really want to return here in our case is just this, the implementation. I'm actually going to rename this. Let's call it storage client shared prefs implementation, just to kind of drive that home. And we'll just do the short form for implementation. And here we will just return an instance of this, which has no constructor or anything. Okay, so let's get rid of some things we're not using. We have our Riverpod, and similarly, actually, in this case, we do want to keep alive because we don't want it to have to boot up multiple ones. Keep alive true. So let's save that. We have our generator going, and hopefully that all works. Okay, so now we have a storage provider, basically a singleton accessing to this. Now, really, let's see, what do we want to do here? Okay, great. The one sort of catcha here, or the one annoying thing is, although none of this stuff is async in terms of getting and setting, which is a great thing about shared preferences, it's done. It's not done as like an async function. The initialization is. So what we'll do, I think we have this in our. We have like a, is it a Bootstrap? Yeah, Bootstrap provider. So we have this Bootstrap provider that basically runs stuff, ahead of time. And what we can actually do here is we can do ref.read our storage provider. And then in this case, we would go and init it. Okay, cool. What's this? Oh, yeah. So this is, oh, wait, our storage provider, is this not the one that I was looking at? Yeah, this is it. Okay, what? Oh, now it's working. I don't know why. We saw a warning saying it shouldn't depend on. That was the warning I was talking about before, and it is no longer telling us that warning, so that's great. All right, so now we have our single thing of this. This will get initialized, and remember our Bootstrap app. This function right here gets called at the start of our thing. Like if we look at our main.dart, we are booting, we're watching that, and we just kind of return this empty app until everything's ready. And that just makes it easy and clean, and we don't have to worry about the different states. Like we know the storage provider is ready to go. So we thought about that, and we're using it here. Okay, so let's kind of like update our code to make this work. So I'm going to get rid of, in our main.dart for languages, we'll get rid of this, we'll get rid of this. We don't need this anymore. Okay, now we're going to have some errors, which is what's great, and we can kind of go and find it. So save languages. Now what we can actually do in here is we can go ref.read, and we can use our storage provider .get string. And here's where, I think like this is kind of a nice thing. We can actually use storage client and we have to import that .get key, or sorry, .language language key. So now instead of writing the word language in two places or multiple places, we are just going to use this key, which is super handy. So that got that working. Now we need to obviously change it for this. So let's do a same kind of thing. I guess, does this actually return something in our set? Let's just see. Final v equals this. I think it does return like a bool. Oh wait, this one is this one actually, I forgot. Setting is asynchronous, whereas getting is synchronous, which that kind of makes sense. So here we're actually going to be returning a future bool. That way we can know like, hey, it actually worked. And that means we need to update up here to follow that same thing when we set a string. Okay, cool. So now we would do the same kind of thing. We would go ref.read and use our storage provider. Let me just actually, I'm going to just write this down here. Final success equals await ref.read storage provider dot, and here we want to set string, and our key is going to be that language, the same thing we're doing right here. So you see the magic of that? We use the same thing in both places. We can change this. This could be called anything, it could be called anything, and our code will work. So we want to set it, and we need to put a value in, and here we'll use obviously language code. Now, oh, I wrote get string, that's why everything is weird. And here we would take our language code that we put in, which is already a string, and we are good. So now we've refactored to use our new lovely provider. So let's make sure this stuff works. So, okay, there we go. Let's wonder if that was just like a weird thing. Let's just rebuild again. I think we're good. Let me just do a save. Got a hot reload happening. Okay, I think it was just like a weird thing. Files were still saving or something. Okay, so let's go here, set our language to Spanish. We saw it change there. We should see this, say this. And if we refresh now, we are still in Spanish. And of course, we can change back to English. And we should be good. Look, I got some spam. Hope I have a chance to talk with you. Spam is out of control these days, guys. It's completely crazy. How do I turn off the spam? Turn off the spam by going do not disturb. All right, cool. All right, and that's it really for storage. Obviously, there's more we can do, and maybe we can add that stuff in now. Let's go to our storage client, and let's create another thing. So we're going to have something that's going to be a bool, and we can do get bool and string again key. Oops, and we don't actually do the implementation. And then we're going to want to have something like set bool. Set bool. The difference here is we'll be passing a bool in for the value. So we'll go here and we will go and create the missing overrides. They seem to be in the right spot in this case. And what we can do here, so we would just, similar to this, we have the get string, we have whatever, so we can just go instance dot get bool and do the key, right? And then same kind of thing here. I'm just going to change this. We'll see there's an error because the value is not right, but we can change this just to set bool and we'll get that back. We need to make this async. For some reason it doesn't like to do that. So there's our bool, and what else might we want? Probably an int. Let's see what, let's just make sure that is supported. So let's just see instance dot get. So they have bool, double, int, there's keys. That's for like a set of like multiple strings and stuff like that, a list of strings. So there's other stuff we can add, but let's just worry about our get int, because that's something. So we'll still have a key, and bool or future bool set int string is the key, and value is going to be of type int. Oops. And of course, we'll just now do this again. Quick fix, create the missing overrides. And for this one, we just return instance dot get int key. And I'll just copy this again. So here, instance dot set int. And of course, make it asynchronous. So now, yeah, we can store ints, we can store bools, you can store strings, and of course, in shared preferences, we can store other things as I was just showing you, and feel free to obviously make, as many as you want. And yeah, I think the cool value here of doing it this way is we might decide, shared preferences we don't like anymore, and we want to go to some other, local database, SQL thing, whatever. The idea is, because we're working with sort of this abstract class, we will only have to change our code in here, or essentially create another implementation, one for Hive or something like that, and then just all we would have to do is update our provider, our storage provider, to point to this new one, and things will just work without having to change your code anywhere else. And that's just a nice practice, especially when working with something third party, whether it's a service or whether it's a plugin, because you might have a change of heart and you don't want to have to refactor everything. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Nice, quick, tidy one about storage. In the next one, we're going to get into environment, flavors, that kind of thing. The idea of I have a local version, a staging version, whatever, and being able to sort of have different settings. And I'm excited for that. It's something I've covered before, but we haven't added it to this project yet. So we'll see you in the next one.